at a time because we have a little latitude. So we'll start with Marlee Bennett and Lynne Allen. Come on up.
Hey, I'm Marlee Bennett. I'm a creative writing major, so I'm just going to read two pieces that I recently wrote. This is called Language is a Virus. I don't remember when your name was just another name that rolled without delicate thought off my tongue. I can't look at your name without an abundance of sentiment attached to each letter. Your name has somehow become sacred to my lips. A name I don't throw around lightheartedly or repeat without deep thought. If I speak of you, I use the English language to describe who you are to me. I am careful because those letters grouped together in that familiar form carry too much meaning for my capricious heart. So that's that. And I'll just read one more. It's titled An Asphalt Dance. Our fingers intertwined as we lay beneath our tree, a warm summer night blanketed with stars. He led me to an empty parking lot, bathed in the orange luminescence of a single streetlight. His shoes reflected its glow, and my sandals clapped against the barren ocean of black as we walked into no particular destination. Without speakers, the screamers, the quiet shielded us. Alone in the parking lot, to the thumping of our beating hearts, we danced to the song of innocence. Thanks.
I'm with the League of Utah Writers, and this is an excerpt out of my book. This book is on the Dutch resistance in World War II, and this is a chapter where one of the friends of the resistance gets arrested. Mr. Busker stirred from a deep sleep and groaned at having been awakened. He almost forgot where he was for a moment, but the glare of the flashlight was an instant reminder. Although he looked robust, his pint-sized frame was a deception. He couldn't weigh more than a sack of flour, yet the edge of the new mattress sagged under his weight. The matted ring of his hair looked like a silver halo on the bald head as the flashlight swept over him. He sat up, his hands gripping the mattress, as he looked toward the barred window to determine the time of day. But there was no light, only darkness. Darkness that enshrouded him like a coffin, that smothered him in a cloak of nothingness and despair. He slumped as the flashlight flicked in his eyes, knowing the beam did not beckon rescue, but herald an ominous beacon of his impending doom. He saw his fate in front of his eyes as the tawdry sound of the brass key ring sounded at the cell door, announcing not an invitation to his liberation, but to death. Mr. Busker slammed his eyes shut, and the yellow glow of the overhead light flicked on. He turned away. The young guard, unlocking the cell door, dropped the keys and reached for them with an agility of a robot. His jerky motions suggested respect laced with fear as he apologized with a stiff salute to the lieutenant. He turned back to the door and, gripping the keys, he opened the door and stepped back with a rigid cadence. Mr. Busker looked at the guard first, then at Lieutenant Hessenmeyer. They both stood at a placid attention. He wondered what the visit was all about until the General Borman, marched down the hall. The general stepped up to the bars and bellowed, "Is this the man who knows the girl that caused the trouble?" "Hello, Herr General," the lieutenant said, looking straight ahead. The general's voice boomed, "Open the cell." The German was cocky and arrogant, and above the law, even the sadistic Mufasa law of Hitler. He strutted in front of Mr. Busker, as with the egotistical plumage of a peacock, then stood next to him. "What do you know about the escape of the prisoners from the church and the explosion at the school?" "I understand that a girl named Marika and her family is responsible for all of it." His honeyed voice dripped with malice. Mr. Busker's eyes were intense with thought for a moment, then announced with a cynical retort, "You're talking about a 17-year-old girl. Come on, General, you give a girl a lot of power." You could see the general stiffen. Superheroes funerals are listed in the phone book under Save the Day Vigilantes. You might want to look there for your mysterious heroine. You could see the general's hands ball into a fist, but to his surprise, neither the general nor the lieutenant struck him, but their faces could have melted slag off cold steel. In his moments alone in his cell, he pondered on what kind of person he wanted to be, hero or coward, his age, the inevitability of this situation, and he had decided he was going to die anyway and might as well stir up some hate and contention. He watched the general. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face, not a customary reaction for an interrogating a prisoner, and figured the general must want something pretty special from him. You got guts, old man. I'll give you that, the general ground out through clenched teeth. You think you're gonna die. You are. But I can extend your death into weeks of suffering, cutting one piece of you off at a time. I'm sure you won't be so fastidious then. Mr. Buskert narrowed in on the general's face. On every line, every micro-expression, the general needed him. And he knew that he was old and frail, and if he were to lose his temper, one blow to the old man's head could kill him. Must be a heck of a battle going inside of him right now, Mr. Buskert mused. I bet he's never had so much self-restraint in his life. It is kind of tough not being able to beat me up into a bloody pulp right now, isn't it? Mr. Buskert smiled. Kind of ruined your day, having to swallow all that pride and bucking down to a disrespectful old man. I'm sure you'll find a woman and some children to take it on, though, and add a few notches to your belt again to heal that wounded pride. The general's eyes darkened. His self-control was hanging by a thread. You will come with us, he bellowed. Mr. Buskert could swear the general walked with an irritated tick as he watched him march stiffly towards the door. Several overhead floodlights filled the room. A table had been set up in the corner with papers and pens strewn on top. One could construe the atmosphere as cheery. The walls were painted white with quaint country pictures of Hollands and horses leisurely grazing against the backdrop of windmills, but with one exception. To the merriment, a large painting of Hitler. That's
Very nice. Good start. Great start. Do any of you have those phones that can contact the internet and go on this Facebook? Do you have that? Does anyone have that? Okay, get it out. Great.
Get it out.
Time is precious. And go to search Helicon West and give the Helicon West page a like while I have all of your attention. We have a Helicon West Facebook page, and there will be announcements there and information about upcoming events. So it would be nice for me.
And we need to talk about the broadside because Diane's on it.
The broadside.
Yeah, that's right.
We have a broadside. It's right here. The broadside is a publication that is put out by the USU Writing Center, which is another organization that I probably should have mentioned before. A sponsor of Helicon West, one of the main sponsors, as is Cafe Ibis with the pizza with the coffee. I know the difference between pizza and coffee. So we have this broadside. It comes out quarterly. Sometimes more often, sometimes less often.
Yes.
And it features artwork from people at USU and readers and authors from this group. So if you have something interesting that you think would fit in this kind of format, or if you are a visual artist, you might just want to contact Star. If you would like a broadside, which is featuring Dianne Hardy, who's right here among us. If you would like one of these, they are
$2.
$2. You don't want 5. I'll get 5.
I'll take 5.
Okay, we'll take 5, but if you got 2. $2 right here, and we have some back there, right?
We don't have any back
Oh,
there,
we don't have
but
any
they
back
can see me and I will get them one.
Okay, all right, so you can get a broadside. All right, that done, we're going to go, we had a bunch of people sign up, so we'll go 3 people at a time now. We're going to welcome Sarah Anderson, MaryAnn Widerburg, and Lauren White. Please come up in that order. Thank you. can sign you?
Yeah.
Whatever she's going to
Off you go.
Hi, my name is Sarah Anderson.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. And this is a poem that I wrote for, well, kind of for my grade at school. It's gonna fall over. Okay. It's called Dear Isis. Dear Isis, please ignore us because ignorance is bliss, and if you're in bliss, less people die. If you ignore us, you won't see us coming, and we are coming. What you did in Paris makes us proud to be people because it reminds us what makes a person a person. People don't take pride in taking perfect life. A person is a person based on beliefs. You can think what you like, we all do. A person is a person based on beliefs, but a person is defined based on actions. You can think crap about Christians, but when you take their life, you surpass the set limit of thinking, and your actions make you monsters. Day by dying day, we listen on the radio to the new horrible horrors you hand us, one by one. We cry away our fears of triumph, of not ours but yours. But ISIS, our army, is powerful. When we speak, we yell, and when we stay quiet, there's a thundering silence from here to wherever we choose. So ISIS, if you're planning on winning this war, be ready, because we're coming.
Nice.
I'm MaryAnn, and I'm just so excited to be with you because I don't get to be here very often anymore. So I'm going to read a couple of old poems that I wrote this summer, and you should pull them out and rework them, so hopefully will give me that kind of push to do that. And then I have something more about me as well. So this is called A Poem for the Other 364 Days. You brought me to your ocean, I, a fledgling soft in the spoon. You showed me seashells, rose and ivory, those broken beauties. My hands you filled with sharp remnants of abandoned homes. You buried my feet in flawless sand, that glass that burns the souls. I was right to fear the tides, the waves that push and pull, strong enough to topple one full girl. You stood in the surf and laughed at how I ran, that I was not so strong as you. You brought me to your ocean, and you never brought me back. Oh. You built a dwelling on the shifting sands, dared me to complain, just once. The green sea of your eyes, always vaster than mine. And when I fled for the Rockies, those narrow rivers never good enough for you, you said it was I who abandoned you, not understanding that I had to find a current that didn't need to drag me under to guide my course. And this one is a pantoum. And for those of you who are not familiar with the structure, and I always get this wrong, so it's the second and fourth line of the previous stanza become the first and third of the next stanza. So you can take one step forward, one step backwards. This is called cartography. The map I carry in my head is wrong. Roads and rivers etched on neurons, courses charted in crayon smudge before I learned the laws of maps. I etched roads and rivers on neurons before I knew of spheres and poles. Ignorant of the laws of maps, south my point of orientation. Before they knew its spherical dimensions, cartographers laid the globe on its side, the orient the point of orientation, and they found their way, somehow. Cartographers laid the globe on its side, inked their own mistaken legends. Somehow they found their way without north as their true direction. Still a child, I inked mistaken legends, charted courses in crayon smudge, refused north as the true direction. But they say the map I carry in my head is wrong. Still, I find my way, somehow. And this next one is a little bit new, but it's kind of more of a rough sketch. It's a journal entry, basically. So hopefully I'll do something with it. She pretends to dislike Taylor Swift, but she's listened to all 5 albums on the bus home. Twice. She's afraid she's like a sappy love song, unoriginal, the same handful of chords played over and over in the same pattern, a predictable melody that spirals through neurons, playing on an infinite loop days after listening. Unforgettable and forgettable all at once. The strings of headlights crowding the highways remind her that she's only one in the mass of humanity on this planet, this continent, this space. She thinks she is nothing more than flawed skin stretched over knotted muscles and weary bones, a vessel for emotions that have already been felt a few 100 billion times. She's grasping at anything familiar. The snow she hasn't seen for almost a year, the mountain peaks jagged against the horizon, an overrated pop artist with whom she shares a birth year. But she knows that familiarity is an illusion. This snow is not the same snow of a year ago. The mountains erode imperceptibly in wind and rain. She goes home, and they are building a super Walmart in a space that has always been comfortably empty. She sits on the bus that carries her closer to that place she used to call home, but now has no word to describe. She will arrive to the shock of single-digit temperatures washing over her as she steps off the bus. Her sisters will pick her up at the station, and she will fall into easy banter, breath rising from her mouth like steam. She will celebrate the holiday with her family, spend hours in a kitchen enveloped in aromas of pumpkin spice, sage, and onion, sit up all night talking about the things that don't really matter. She will hold under her tongue the words she cannot say, the important words. Now is not the time to turn them over, to roll them carelessly off her tongue like the so many others she will that night. Later, she will leave the home where she no longer belongs. She will go back to the desert plains where she also does not belong. Perhaps amid the blowing dust and prairie grass, she will find the space to store those held-back words that make her jaw ache. On the bus, she will probably listen to Taylor Swift again, all 5 albums.
I'm Lauren White, and I'm also an English major with an emphasis in creative writing. And I'm going to read a poem that I wrote, and it's called What I Have Become. I'm constant, destroy and rebuild, from lost to found. Only one thing remains intact, my way of thinking. I live now because love is at once a snapping trap and a glorious sense of ecstasy. I find myself torn to pieces in an instant. They say, destroy what destroys you. But I can't. I can't destroy you. Not without destroying myself. You, the destruction that I will be burdened with forever.
Just a note of caution, just watch out for these wires if you're going to come up this way. Next we have 3 readers, Brittney McDonald, Tim Keller, and Dianne Hardy. In that order.
I'm so happy I get to be in the trio with Dianne. Keller, I feel so cool. Tonight I'm reading nonfiction, actually for the first time here at Helicon West. This is a section from a chapbook I wrote for Jennifer Seiner's class last semester. And it's titled In My Blood. This piece, not the chapbook. You asked me once, my grandma drawled over the miles of telephone wire, if I ever drank. Do you remember that? Not really, I answered into my headset, laying a black sock beneath the underwear pile on my bed and diving back into the bag of hot, finished laundry. Well, you did, she sighed. Did stretched to fill 2 syllables. And I did. Yeah? My voice was absent and I knew it, preoccupied with folding my jeans and pressing them tightly to fit in the drawer. I had been meaning to call my grandma for 2 weeks, and it turned out while folding laundry was the only time I had. When she brought up drinking, I was happy I had something to do with my hands. Yup. Then one day I was sitting at the bar, with a mirror behind it, and I look over and see this woman. She's got this frizzy hair and this cigarette dripping from her hand, just sitting at the bar. And I thought, gosh, is that me? My grandma laughed. From then on, I was just done. I matched a pair of white socks, but the black one was still alone. Were you an alcoholic like Dad? I asked, louder than I meant to. Well, honey, a shift in the drawl. I drank to get drunk every time. I drank for a lot of years when I was younger, about your dad's age, and I drank a lot more than I should have. The faint lilac stain on my peach-colored dress glared at me as I hung it up. Last summer I had hidden a bottle of wine in my suitcase after drinking it in a motel room with dead flies on the floor. My boyfriend didn't want to leave it in the room's garbage can because I was underage and our Mormon parents weren't likely to pay bail. The dress went through the dryer before I caught the stain. It was permanent now, but light enough that I could ignore it and still wear the dress. You could stop when you wanted to, I asked. I mean, just like that. Well, honey, when I saw myself sitting there at the bar, I couldn't believe it was me. Did I never have another drink again? No, but it wasn't like... And I could now, with all the beer and stuff your dad and Aunt Dianne leave laying around here, but I don't. I was running out of clothes. Right. But I had a time like your dad, yeah. I got it from my dad too. He was a really heavy drinker. Probably his dad is where he got it from, although I never met my granddad. He died before I was born. At the bottom of the bag is the other black sock. I grab both halves and ball them together tightly. It's just one of those things you ought to know if you ever have to make the decision. But let's stop talking about me, my grandma said with a giggle. I forced a laugh with her, putting the socks in the underwear pile. You're fine, Grandma. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know. Thank you.
Pull it back a little bit so I have some maneuvering room. It's all right. Okay, going to be creative nonfiction trio, I guess, unless you can, Diane, have you written fiction?
Yeah, it's memoir.
There you go.
That's not fiction though, it's memoir.
Right, there you go.
This is true.
This is called Flash. Sailor didn't like the looks of the young man, that much was clear. Woo boy, he said. Would you look who's here? Talk about a bad penny turning up. The man, not much more than a boy, really burrowed into the meager shade of a drinking fountain in front of my father's service station, folded his arms over a leather vest, and in spite of the scorching heat of a cloudless July day, fell asleep. Just look at how he's dressed, Sailor continued. Hair all flapping around like a girl's damn hippie probably squats to pee. My face reddened, but a look from Dad silenced any hint of protest. Didn't they know who this was? They cheered for him often enough from the stands. Richie Butters was the guy every boy wanted to be, every girl wanted to have. He had the skills, legendary on the basketball court. He had the car, 1979 black Camaro Z28, complete with orange racing stripe. And he had style, that awesome leather vest, never a hair out of place. But school had been out for 6 weeks now, a lifetime ago apparently. Sailor, for his part, was dressed to the nines in shabby overalls and worn work boots, looking every bit the male part of American Gothic. The stifling of which retort again, at the psychic behest of my father, actually hurt. Kid came sniffing around my daughter, he said. I'd feel his rear end so full of rock salt he'd shrivel up like a couple raisins. What daughter? I said under my breath. Apparently not quietly enough, though. Dad's finger wrapped my skull. I hear old Ann Harris ran him out of premium oil, Conti said. Conti said. Wouldn't even let him fill up. Wouldn't let him around here if I were you, Sailor added, an eye toward me. The boy might pick up bad habits. That's me, by the way. The boy, or was. If they're feeling personal, or excuse me, the boy or boy if they're feeling personable. It wasn't that I minded my job at the station. It was better than bagging groceries or hauling hay anyway. But I hated working days. That's when Dad's friends came by to chat. If I was lucky, they'd have one of their kids with them and we could slip away to some corner somewhere. Mostly, though, I was on display. The dutiful son to be seen, and seen busy, I might add, but definitely not heard. Just once I'd have liked to corrected them. Nothing big, maybe just, my name's Tim, or something equally revolutionary. It wouldn't do any good, though. I can hear Dad's hush even now. Sailor was retired and had become a regular fixture around the station, leaving only for sustenance and then returning sometimes for the day. One night, Dad and I were closing up before he finally left. Why do you let him hang around all day, I asked as we pulled away. Have some respect. Sailor is a great man. I should have known that was coming. Everyone in town knew Sailor was a decorated naval hero, hence the moniker Sailor. The second part of his name, Moon, came from the location of an old battle wound, as Sailor would say, Shrek will cut me in the ass. Didn't even know his real name. I guess, I said, gratified Dad had ordained to discuss the matter. But Dad, he's mean as hell. He's not mean at all, just tough. Oh, I know he grumbles a lot and he likes to tease. That's just how military men are. Well, all he does now is stand around all day and talk crap about people, and you wouldn't think that from anybody else. Dad's voice turned grave. He's hurting, son. He's lonely now that his wife is gone. Would you really deny him a place to go and be with his friends? I shrugged. Wouldn't that make you the mean one? I breathed the kind of sigh perfected in adolescence, I guess, I said, and let it drop, for the moment anyway. Still, I just couldn't see the attraction. I mean, women get a bad rap on the gossip front, but these guys at the station were worse than any women I ever knew. I heard the rumors about Richie myself, that he'd gotten Susan pregnant. Everybody was shocked. Not so much about the sex. The shock actually came from Susan. Sure, she was nice and pretty, but she wasn't exactly an A-lister. Susan's parents weren't happy about it, but Richard's mom went clock tower batshit crazy and threw him out of the house. His dad, always kind of wimpy, just sort of went along. The part nobody talked about was him foregoing college ball to get a job and an apartment for them both to live. Not juicy enough, I guess. Sleeping out there like a bum, Sailor growled. He grabbed one of the window washing buckets I just filled. This'll wake him up. My hand locked around the handle so tight it spun Sailor back around. Our eyes locked. I wanted to call him a hypocrite. A gossiping old biddy, nasty, ugly, bitter. Too many other things to mention in polite company. I was 15, that's my excuse. 15-year-olds didn't say things like that to the friends of their fathers. Not if they wanted to reach 16 anyway. Sailor turned red and jerked the bucket. It barely moved. Something, not quite fear, but something, registered behind his eyes, and he let go. Dad walked to the Coke machine, dropped in a quarter, punched Fanta Orange, Sailor's favorite, and handed him the can. Tim, would you go out and ask your friend to come in here a moment? I'd like to have a word with him. Yes, sir, I said. I walked out on automatic pilot. That didn't go so badly, all things considered. The situation didn't bode well for Richie, though. He wore the infamous leather vest, now scuffed and scarred, a black Sabbath t-shirt and filthy jeans with no socks. His sneakers had holes over both big toes. The sole was beginning to rip from the shoe. I opened my mouth to speak, but hesitated. True, school was out. Even so, high school hierarchy clearly forbids the invisibles from initiating casual conversation with stars. It was during my hesitation that he awoke. Hey, buddy, he said, I didn't know you worked here. Hey, I said, it's my dad's place. Cool, doing construction work. Work sucks, but the pay's good. Suspicion crept into his eyes. Hey, do I have to leave? I mean, I will, of course. It's just Susan has the card during summer semester down at the college. I said I'd meet her here. Could you maybe ask your dad if I can hang out till she gets here? Sure, I mean, I will. But he kind of wants to talk to you. Just then, Susan pulled up in a beat-up Pinto. I was mortified. Dude, what happened to your car? Sold it. Babies are expensive. Then he grinned. Totally worth it, though. He greeted Susan with a kiss. Pull it over to self-serve, he told her. I've been here a while. We better get some gas. Can you tell your dad I'll be right in? I nodded. Headed back inside and shot Sailor a glare before I grabbed the approve button for the self-service island. He was waiting for his wife to pick him up, I said. He'll be in a minute. A moment later, Richie walked in. Not tentative, not defiant either, just confident, and handed Dad $5 for the fuel. You wanted to see me, Mr. Keller? Dad took the money and walked to the register. I did, he said, pointed to a plaque on the wall, just a silly old quote with a picture of a horse on it. So trivial these days it could barely qualify as a Facebook meme. Can you read that for me? Richie dutifully decided the message. If you treat your wife like a thoroughbred, it said, she'll never turn into an old nag. Then he chuckled, equally dutifully it seemed to me. Dad walked back with a $100 bill in his hand. Don't use it for bills, or gas, or diapers, or anything else I know you're going to need. I want you to take your beautiful bride out for a date, often as you can, understand? Richie could only nod, while the rest of us had felt the fascination with the floor. Now I understand you need a place to wait for your wife. Why not come in next time? Hell yes, Sailor added. We could use some new blood. The boy over there is so damn serious. Boring as all get.
I'm going to read 4 little parts from this book I wrote, Coulbrooke in 2012. It's a memoir of my childhood.
Diane,
Yeah.
put the microphone down with your wrist, just the microphone part. Just turn
Too
it.
loud?
No, I just wanted it closer to your mouth.
Oh, okay. All right. Grandma and Grandpa didn't spend much time with me during the early part of the day. Both were up before 6 o'clock in the morning. Grandpa fired up the living room stove, so it was toasty and warm when I appeared at 7:30, just in time to dry the breakfast dishes for Grandma. I hated doing dishes at home, but loved doing them at her house. In the mornings, Grandpa fixed things, fed chickens, cut grass, and weeded his garden. After lunch, when his chores were done, he walked up the street to the Mighton Saloon to visit and watch men play pool. He stayed a short time and was back by 1:30 or so. I knew when he arrived home that I'd have his attention for the whole afternoon. That's when the fun began each day, with the 2 of us sitting out on the couch playing cards. He taught me rummy, 7-up, casino, double solitaire, and when we tired of those games, he introduced me to the provocative world of poker. She's too little and her mother won't like her learning that stuff, protested Grandma. Grandpa simply said, Danny's a smart little girl, she can do it. And I did, probably becoming one of a handful of 4-year-old poker players in the world. I soon knew all about full houses, flushes, straights, and what beat what. Stud poker, jacks or better, and high-low, we did them all. Grandpa taught me blackjack last, and it was soon our favorite. He laughed heartily as I added my cards and responded loudly with, hit me, or I'll stay. He never let me win, and I didn't at first, and one day I trounced him, and he was delighted. A real Barnum and Bailey circus came to Roosevelt, which is 10 miles from Mighton. Grandpa and I went to see it. We saw trained tigers and lions, a tightrope walker, a pretty lady who rode way back on the top of an elephant. Grandpa bought me a snow cone and some cotton candy, which made me rather sick to my stomach. Just as we were to leave, a man at one of the game booths called to us. For 10 cents, Grandpa could play a shell game. He paid the money, and the man moved 3 shells around and then stopped. Which one hides the rock? Grandpa pointed at one and was right. The man had to pay him 20 cents. Grandpa won again, and the 3rd time, the man looked upset as he paid the money to Grandpa. Then he moved the shells for quite a while, trying hard to confuse Grandpa. But again, it didn't work, because Grandpa was able to pick the shell hiding the rock. The man snarled, why don't you get out of here? Grandpa smiled at me and we left. No one could get the best of my grandpa, the smartest man I knew. I'm reading 3 more little excerpts, but these are when I'm in the 2nd grade, so I'm 7. Mrs. Harris, my 2nd grade teacher, wasn't the grandmotherly type. With her loud voice and brisk manner, she scared us kids. Hope was scared enough she didn't dare to ask to go to the bathroom the first day. Instead, she peed her pants, making a big puddle under the desk. Mrs. Harris drew the class's attention to it and told us that we must dare to ask if we needed to go to the bathroom. Hope had to stay after school and wipe up the pee. I was embarrassed for her and sneaked a glance at her face before leaving class. She looked sick. Yet we all got used to Mrs. Harris's abrupt manner over time. She had a good sense of humor and often laughed at herself, which helped us to be able to do the same, although shy kids like Hope still had a hard time. Mrs. Harris liked kids with gumption like me. I worked hard for her and was glad she liked me. Early in the school year, she told us about the election process in a democracy where people nominate candidates to office and then vote. She suggested we elect a class president with duties, such as choosing someone to pass out the milk, collect papers, or conduct class meetings. Mrs. Harris opened the floor for nominations, and I quickly raised my hand and nominated myself. She smiled, put my name on the board. No one else nominated. Do one of you lads want to run against Dianne? Asked Mrs. Harris. Jim raised his hand and nominated himself. Then it was time for the vote, where we wrote down my name or Jim's name on a piece of paper that Mrs. Harris passed around. I won the election and became the class president. The year was off to a great start. Claire and Bird sat across the aisle from me. Something was wrong with him because when he talked, we kids could hardly understand him. On Friday, we did art projects, and Clarence colored dogs green. He also scribbled instead of coloring in the lines. When Mom and Daddy talked about students, I listened carefully, and I overheard Mama say, Clarence shouldn't be in school because he's feeble-minded. I asked Mama what that meant. She said, stupid. That had to be why he colored dogs green. Soon he didn't come to class anymore. After school one day, I waited for Daddy to take me to the store. He came to my room to get me, said hello to Mrs. Harris, and then said, I see Clarence Bird's been withdrawn from school. Did his parents give you a reason? Mrs. Harris shrugged and said, some of those birds fly pretty low. And she and Daddy laughed. Next one, last one. Billy Jensen sat behind me, and I didn't like him one bit because he put his feet up on the back of my dress. He talked when he wasn't supposed to, and when I got after him, we both got in trouble. Once we had to stay in at recess and write over and over on the board, I will not talk in class. After arguing a lot with Billy, I realized he'd stop picking on me if I were nice to him. So I tried smiling and changing the subject when he wanted to fight, and it worked. He taught me one fine skill, how to make burps. He'd lean up behind me and burp loudly in my ear. It was annoying at first, but I got used to it and decided it was a fun thing. I learned to gulp air in and let it out loudly, and I soon became good. Grandma Blaine was a master burper, although she called it belching, not burping. She did it real loud, especially after eating dinner. Mama said it was because she was German. When I showed her what I could do, she wasn't happy for me. Instead, she frowned and told me it wasn't nice manners to burp. Thank you.
Okay, next we will hear from Ronald Jensen and Bill Bauer and Millie. Your handwriting is a little...
That's fine.
Millie
Tullis.
Tullis. Millie Tullis. In that order, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Ronald.
From Yorko. My experience is Yorko. I've had a great experience this year at Yorko, working with kids who are the best. I'm getting greetings from kids every day. I'm getting a hug. I think I'll stay. I'm getting a nice note. I'm getting today. Picking someone's hair. They enjoy to serve. I'm glad I can say that. They yes, they're dear to me. I hope I can help them. Do the best I can be. From what I call trust from a child is the second thing. To be cherished, more to be cherished, and diamond rings. I feel that trust when they come to me to help in the luncheon and in the library. They trust me to help them out and keep them safe and shout it out. I hope I can live up to the trust I get, to the things they do, they won't me get. Thank you.
Okay, if this don't work, it's Star's fault. She made me write it down. You gotta understand, the way I passed English classes is finding females that were great at English and helping them with history. Okay, the other day I went to the doctor and I said, "Doctor, is it okay if I drink a glass of wine? It might help me go to sleep at dinner." Or at night, not dinner. I try to stay awake during dinner. And he says, "Well, yeah, Bill, I think that'll be fine." And then he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, Bill. How big is your wine glass?" See, this is like my standard everything glass. My wine glass is more okay. Okay, so for those of you who are not here last time, the backstory to this, because I told part of it last time. A batshit crazy NR professor convinced me to ride herd over G, the best looking, most sought after male in the College of Natural Resources. Even businesswomen wanted to date this guy. And L, a woman who is the ultimate definition of Caliphasian and is the proud owner of a designer thong collection that shows off this particular asset. And Missy, long of leg, firm of butt, full of breast, raven-haired, international studies student, whose father is a major donor to the College of Natural Resources. Oh dear Lord, why me and how bad am I going to screw this one up? The project consisted of running around the different wildlife refuges in the state, getting rid of our, at night with guns. What a crazy professor, turning students loose at night with guns. Decreasing the population of our four-footed, duck-eating, duck-destroying friends. When I left you, Missy was the shooter, and Methuselah, the most sought-after beaver at the Bear River Bird Refuge, was out in the open, short grass, 50 yards from the river. Missy's the shooter. She's not shooting. For some reason, she is not shooting. She's not pulling the trigger. Missy, shoot. Missy, shoot. We're all hooked up on a comm system. Soon, everybody. Missy, shoot, shoot, shoot. Methuselah is making for the river. 50 yards. I think he was confused because he kept pausing like, I really can't believe this. I really can't believe this. So, he's getting closer to the river. The chant, shoot, 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 is getting more hurried. Nothing happens. Splash! Now, I am very well known. For you, of those of you who don't know me, of being very calm in any given situation and handling it with kindness and understanding. I calmly walked up to Missy and asked, Missy, what the fuck? And she looks at me and she goes, you know, I just couldn't do it. It wouldn't be right. It would be like shooting family. Dead silence. Even over the comm system. Dead silence. What could I do? Her last name is Beaver. And it's all right if Missy Beaver doesn't want to shoot one of the family. That's really what she said.
Hi, I'm Millie Tullis. I am going to read two poems. One has a little bit of an Austrian accent in it, but I'm probably not going to do well with that. So the first one is called while watching a documentary on female serial killers. Turning the woman into battery, snap a clamp on her funny metal hat on her ankle, whisper shackle, and she remembers her name. You shaved her head, you shaved her leg. You turn on the lights and she glows. They said she was the child that never grew up, seeing spirits and ghosts in every crack of woods by the road, killing her father 7 times over, killing the 7 Johns who picked her up from the bed of their trucks. One ripped up her asshole, poured rubbing alcohol into her upside down, shook her like a cocktail. Poured rubbing alcohol down her nose, mouth right side up, make her sputter like a sparkler. The sentence was, turn the woman into battery, into light, into that power, electricity to read after dark. And the second poem is titled Suzette. Suzette wears sunglasses inside the restaurant. She pulls long fingers, long satin pink acrylic to her mouth, clicking up her lips like 10 ants rhythmically, pulls herself to my wrist, circle of respiration, soft skin reaching. They asked for my table, Suzette and Dennis, ordered a club with white bread, a Monte Cristo with fries. Each time I pass, Suzette asks for more coffee, but in her reaching out hands way. Sometimes she gets around my arm and smiles. She is 80 at least, but skinny and sexy, sounds like Ava Gabor, they wearing fat movie star sunglasses. Dennis leaves the table. Suzette says she can't leave him. He's so much younger than her, cross-eyed, bald. When her second husband died, but she misses her children. She's a mother, she loves her children. She is whispering just above a breath. There is the click of teeth, mouth opening and closing louder than her secrets. He won't let her see her children, my children. They are afraid to call her anymore. Dennis returns from having paid their sandwich bill. He leaves the table, she will follow. She touches me, ignores ketchup and ice cream lacing my arms, my apron. Can I give you a hug, Millie? Oh God, I just love you. You would like my daughter, she's 50 now, and remarried in LA, but I don't know who she is such a good girl, like you, honey.
Well, we're coming in for a landing now. How's it been so far?
Yes.
Just us? Yeah, we can do it, right? We're going to do more all open mic events in the future. So tell your friends, tell your writerly friends, tell your listening friends to come on in, and we have some really great features as well coming up. I'm going to read 2 short things for you. One of them was not written by me. It was written by a person who's read here before, who could not make it tonight. And I'm sorry to say that it's a little bit off color, but it's very, very brief. And she wrote it. She's not here, right? She said she's not. No. And she wrote it. You'll understand why it's a little bit confusing. I think she wrote it because she knew that I was going to read it for her, and so she wrote it for me to read because I'm a guy, and she's not a guy. It's a haiku, and it's called Ode to January. It's a haiku, and it's called Ode to January. My scrotum withers. Balls retreat like frightened mice. Holy shit, it's cold. None would help. And then I have been facing a series of challenges in my life, and I wrote, I don't even know what this is, maybe Stark can help me out afterwards, maybe we can have a little consultation on what the heck this is. But I wrote it for a blog that Russ Beck and I write about fishing, or we used to write a lot about fishing, and it was just a really tiny little thing. I kind of meant it as a poem, and it's kind of, I dusted it off recently and beefed it up and fleshed it out, and And this is what it is. We were doing a thing a couple of years ago called Every Day in May. We were blogging every day. We blogged every day in May, and every day had a prompt, and it was stuff like the color blue or, you know, your uncle. And this day was current, because we write about fishing and rivers and stuff. And so this is called, I just titled it after the prompt, and it's called Current. You can't control the current. It does what it wants to. If the current wants to stack a squadron of cutthroats rising to mayflies in the seam where the fast water meets slow, then that's what it will do. So you cast to the last in the line of them, and you hook one, and you pull him off to the right into the faster water so that he fights into your net without disturbing the others, and you point his nose downstream when you let him go again. And then you do the same for the next fish up the line, and the next after him. It feels like you're in control because the current has brought you good fortune, but the current has brought you good fortune because that's what it wanted to do, not because you're in control. The current may decide to cloud the stream and put the fish down, so that even the sharpest and flashiest nymph might by accident drift into the trout's actual mouth, and he still would not take it. Because if the current wants to bring you misery, that's what it will do. If the current decides to surge against your upstream thigh and scour the gravel from beneath your downstream boot and throw your ass down a series of tumbled boulders piled like a concrete staircase, that's what it's going to do. You can't control the current. It does what it wants to. The best thing you can do, the only thing you can do, is try to understand it. Thanks. We are coming to our final approach here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more readers. We're going to hear right now from Danielle Green and Chloe Hansen. Is that right?
She left.
She left.
Oh.
Wow, Chloe. Thanks a lot. Okay, so we'll do this then. We'll say, we'll say Danielle Green, Terysa Dyer, and Shannon Branfield. In that order, please. Thank you.
So our dear friend Millie made the decision for me to read something to you tonight, so you can blame her for what's about to happen to you. Okay, so I am also a creative writing major, like a majority of the people sitting in this direction, and I wrote a poem about an experience I had growing up in Atlanta. I was born and raised in the South. No one else? Okay. Yeah.
MaryAnn.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, that's like an hour away from where I grew up. So, with the exception of her, I'm sure a lot of you are dying to know what it's like to be a teenage girl in Atlanta. So I will hopefully provide you with that experience tonight. It's just a short poem. Okay, this is called Friday Night, Atlanta. 15 years old, thick eyeliner, scanning the room of inebriated grins with an ignorant hope for easy acceptance. Lounging in the boys' living room, a lamb amongst the lions the Bible warned me about, untouched, straight edge, a toy they could break for a few laughs while blowing high school war stories through nicotine clouds that began to settle at the bottom of my pink lungs. The boy takes my hand, yanking me from the crumbling chapel of my youth into his lap, trapped. His cigarette lit, arm snaking around my waist, he whispers in my ear everything he will later do with someone else who isn't me. Someone who isn't me. As I smile fondly at my close friends, pretending I don't exist. Thanks.
Hi. I'm going to read 2 poems. One of them is really just the beginning of a poem. We came here late because we were at the graduate poetry workshop with Ben Gunsberg, so we started, was it a Mark Strand poem? We read a Mark Strand poem from a litany, and I have a great memory, and it just has this refrain at the beginning of every line of I praise, so I wrote about my grandmother. I praise the hair that grows back now, stalwart gray on my grandmother's scalp.
I praise the minutes she sits on the couch and rubs those new hairs. I praise all the baby chicks for giving her a positive image of her new hair. I praise the Huntsman Cancer Institute for shooting my grandmother with concentrated radioactive rays every day. I praise the way she does not complain and the way she does complain when it hurts. I curse the lump she found, wherever it lies, at the bottom of a metal tube full of biohazard waste now. I praise the lump my grandmother found, the alarm that sounded at stage 2. I praise stages 3 and 4 for staying the fuck away from my grandmother. I praise my grandmother, my grandmother. And then this other one, which is much more lighthearted. It's the end of a letter. Yours truly, Terysa, your roommate, the one who lives with you and eats your snacks and leftovers, sometimes pays you for rent, and whose name is Terysa. It's me, Terysa. You remember, we sometimes talk together as well. I get your mug from the top of our cupboard. I'm tall-ish. You remember me, it's Terysa, your roommate. I'm at the door and I forgot my key. I forgot to take it when I went to the store to buy you milk. You want your milk. You remember me, it's me. I saw you yesterday talking to someone. Is it her? That girl, is she your new roommate?
So I'm Shannon, and I'm not usually a creative writing person, but I'm trying new things because I'm friends with creative writing people, and this is what you do apparently. So here it goes. I told him no, but he kept going. I kept saying no over and over, shaking my head no and saying no the entire time. I felt like a fool for thinking I could get out of it that easily. I knew there was nothing I could do. I spent the next 10 years trying to rewrite history. I thought it was my fault. I thought I was overreacting. I thought he loved me. I thought it didn't count as rape because he was my boyfriend. I didn't break up with him. He loved me. I loved him. I didn't want it to be true.
All right, our last 3 readers will be Luke Lemmon, Chris Davis, and then we will hear from Star at the last. One big round of applause for everyone who came up. And thanks once again to the library, to Star, to the USU Writing Center, to Cafe Ibis. Please patronize them, else at other times to thank them for bringing coffee to us. And who did I miss? Is that it? Mitch. Sitting on his ass. Okay, last 3. Luke, Chris, and Star. Come on.
This is a poem called When You Die. It's not what you expect. There's life in living and dying, and then there's just death. Your vision goes dark, so don't be afraid. Not you. You were calm. You were peaceful. You were dead. No, not dead, not alive. You just are. Your vision clears and you see a mountain, a colossal mountain scraping the heavens. No purgatory, no demons, no fire, no judgment, no ghosts or ghouls or graves or gods, just you and the mountain. You see at the top something of, just barely, something of significance, too hazy for details, but you know it's what you want, it's important. You notice suddenly how desolate the mountain is. No, not completely, just barren of flora, but there are people everywhere, strewn about the mountain. The mountain stretches before you, too large to fit in itself. The bumps and cracks and crevices and sallies and battles and hills take more space than the mountain can physically hold. And then you see people standing beside you, staring at the mountain too, just staring at it in a trance. You can't discern their faces in the light. The light, you notice, isn't really there. There's no dark either. It's eternal twilight, as if the sun setting on all sides. The sky's on fire, producing no light, a deep blood red shot up in dusk. People begin to walk forward, not all, but some. You notice the ever-growing multitude climbing up the mountain, and the countless too stunned to move. You step forward, knowing behind you lies the same mount, and the peak is your goal. You trudge forward, one eye on the mountain, one eye on the ground, one eye on the other journeyers. Some you see look only at the goal, and they stumble and trip and fall, choosing difficult paths, never reaching the goal. Some you see look only at their feet and the ground underneath, too focused on placing one foot in front of the other, so they miss the goal, wandering onto forbidden paths. You shout, but they can't hear, they are already lost. You become aware of a distant noise, a faint sound, the source unknown, the nature uncertain. You strain your ears to hear as you hike, and you realize it's thunder, constant, unceasing, and distant thunder. You walk, surely, truly. With each pace, with every step, your strength fades away. You pause, you're breathing heavier. Stopping and resting does not revivify. You continue, becoming more and more tired with each and every stride, and it feels as if you walked for days on that empty slope. You see some souls standing, sitting, sprawling, too tired to continue, waiting to turn to the dust of the earth. Some have stopped and have turned around, looking at the ground they've trekked. You glance behind and halt. It seems you've moved only a yard. You look at the people plodding along and the goal in the distance, impossibly far away, wondering, doubting. No, there is no stopping, not for all the tricks of the mountain or for all the tricks of the mind. You must press forward enduring, or wait and fade away. You ascend slowly, steadily, with growing lassitude in each step. The goal is closer. You can see edges, corners, details. Not enough to know what it is, but you know it's what you want. You hear rumors from passers-by in pairs, allies of opportunity, speaking in low tones about the nature of the goal. They call it different names. Paradise, Nirvana, Elysian fields, but they describe it all the same. Sanctuary, comfort, peace, joy, euphony, love, bliss, mercy, rest. You walk on, unable to speak, you're constantly out of breath. As your elevation grows, their conversation slows till silence replaces their voices. And louder the thunder becomes, no longer a dull roar, but a deafening bellow. Some collapse from the strain, prostrated on the mount. They rise no more. Some fall and slide down, lying as if they're dead, too tired to try again. You move slower, your feet like lead, your head heavy, your arms weighted, you shuffle your way upward. Your chest is heaving, your eyes can't focus. Your mouth is gaping, your legs are failing. You fall to one knee and struggle to stand. You rise to take a step, then fall. You're on your chest, completely prone against the mount. You must continue forward. You drag yourself along. A mist arises, you're befuddled, so you crawl, following the slope, never knowing how far you must climb. You cut your hands, scrape your knees, struggling on the rocky incline. Then, there is no more slope. You've reached the top. You've ascended the mount. The goal absent, the peak void. You are alone. You are exhausted. You are disappointed. You are afraid. You force yourself to your feet, swoon and almost collapse. The thunder has ceased. The mist is silent, oppressive. You are utterly lost. A ladder swiftly descends from the sky, groaning and roaring like thunder, slamming into the dirt before you, stretching into the mist above you. Your vision grows dim, your heart beats faint. You think distantly, how will you climb when you scarcely have the strength to hold yourself upright? You struggle to lift your hand to place on a rung, knowing it'll be your last action before you faint from exhaustion and are doomed to rise no more. Your fingers encircle it, grasp it firmly with failing strength. An electric shock courses through you, vitality is restored to your limbs. You endeavor to climb before it fades. You lift yourself, rung after rung, as the ground fades to obscurity. And with each inch you climb, your renewed vigor fades away, sucked into the mist and silence. Your eyes pierce the vapor overhead. It is darkening. An object is approaching. Above you is an opening where the ladder ends. You reach and grab the rim, slowly, lethargically heave yourself up into the opening. You collapse safely inside. Roll onto your back, panting. Your eyes are closed, conserving strength, the lid's too heavy to open. Your breathing slows, your mind clears. You've reached your goal, and it is everything it described. Comfort, peace, sanctuary, joy, euphony, love, bliss, mercy, rest. And you are content to lie on the floor forever. But someone picks you up, carrying you gently in their arms, and like a sleeping child, lays you on a feather bed. You feel a loving hand run tenderly through your hair, the hand of someone who cares, who understands your trial, your suffering, your pain. And a gentle voice soothes you, a soft-spoken whisper, filled with affection, warmth, telling you through tears of relief and joy, I've been expecting you.
Alright, I just have one poem today. This is from last semester. I had a poetry class, and we had to do a workshop poem, so we read to the entire class. And I had one of the later dates, And I got really, really nervous as time went on and we heard from other people. And so I started getting more and more nervous that what I wrote needed to be really good. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I didn't care and I got really angry, and this came out in 10 minutes. So it's called A Poem Speaks Out. I'm a poem. Fuck off. Tell me what I am. I dare you. Oh, your metaphors and similes and imagery, blah, blah, blah. Don't put me into that box like a slithering sweater and a sad sack of sadistic sorrow. You don't know me. We've never even met till just now. I murdered my writer. He's dead. See that coming? Am I effective? What's my purpose? What's your purpose? Jerk off? I'm not complex. Don't look for deeper meaning. Why are you even bothering me with all of this? Get what I'm saying and move on. Love me, hate me, I don't care. I'm still here.
Wasn't this fun? This has been a really great open mic night. Thank you all. Wow. Good stuff. I would just like to point out that this flyer was created by your MC, Chad Vanzanten. And if you would like to consider looking at it some more, you can take it out. It's really good. You can look for it on our blog, heliconwest.wordpress.com. And where's Jessica? There's Jessica, and she is our blog person. And you'll like what she says about this flyer. So find it and read what she says, because it's really good. It's funny and it's history both. And about this broadside right here, Danielle is going to ask some of you if you would like to consider having your work considered to be on one of these beautiful broadsides. And so find Danielle after if you think you want, thank you Danielle, if you think you want to be considered for a broadside. It has to be fewer than 20 lines to be on a broadside. I just have 3 poems tonight. They're revised. One is in the air, and one is in the dark night, and one's about a tree. In the air. Outside's awash in solar waves, electromagnetics connecting our planet with hundreds of billions of others, their dust raining down on slanted sun through open, slatted blinds. We hold our phones to catch the beams, our bodies' fleshy antenna absorbing transmissions. No wonder the brain feels bristly, riddled with radio spikes, a sphere of them 30 feet thick, says Sagan, expanding ever outward at the ancient speed of light. Hardwired to communicate, we itch to answer signals from whoever is calling, their news hurtling through the outer reaches to perch on our aerials, tuned in to our star-stunned channels. Endings. In the dark night when they are sleeping and the door is closed against dogs, cops, burglars, fire, the snaking wind beneath their house, and even possibly underground river, a flooded cavern, locomotive on the tracks west of town, whistle toning its warning. He wakes first and then she does, both awake to a silence that permeates dead earth within their last joint dream, which lays them out here in the deep dark. Neither shall go back to sleep. She feels for the door and cannot find the knob, her hands sliding over the panel and frame, over and over, sliding like whispers against the smooth paint as he lies breathing quietly, softly, alert. In the dark night, animals pass over damp earth in a seizure of rotation. They spin, disoriented, in thrall, bed anchored to the dry wood floor, a fine layer of sand seeping upward into the cracks. birch. What happened here? Your smooth veined leaves all shattered? Was it hail? When the wind came hard through the park, heady hot summer alight with flashes of fire coursing up from grass and stone, what happened when it forked? Its crooked lines crazing dark sky, the howl of it like metal, then pelting hail, those hard chunks slicing down like falling stars. Your leaves, a filigree on half-bare limbs, a scree of green around your trunk.